Good day, everyone. Our group came up with a question: how did the modernization of our society affects the preservation of cultures and beliefs? In order to answer that question, we looked for a book that might have the answers. This is the summary of the book entitled Cultures and Customs of the Philippines. So come and explore it with us.
For the land, Philippines lies about 115,600 square miles. That is made up of over 7,100 islands and is characterized into three major islands, which is Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. For the people, Filipinos are known to be the most loving and hospitable people and is characterized into the dialects they speak based on each island. Luzon people mainly speaks Tagalog. Visayans and Mindanao people are to speak Cebuano. For the Philippine history, Ferdinand Magellan was asked to circumnavigate the world that led to the discovery, ruling, and selling of Ophir to Americans. Soon, Ophir was named after a Portuguese explorer named King Philip II. For the thought and religion, Philippines is overwhelmingly Christian country that is given by the Spain to the Filipinos. Magellan, the leader of the Spain colonization at the time, baptized Filipinos of Cebu to show them that there is life after death.
Chapter 3: Art and Literature. Philippine art is an amalgamation of indigenous traditions, adapted Western forms, and vibrant contemporary folk art. The older artistic forms still exist among the country's many minority peoples, although these traditions are disappearing at an increasing rate. Western-influenced art can be found at two cultural levels. At the high end of the culture, artists reproduce sophisticated works comparable with any others on the international modern art scene. A number of these artists have used their imaginations and skill to produce works on themes of national identity and social commentary. More broadly, Filipinos delight in bright colors and artistic exuberance that enlightens everyday life.
Philippine architecture and housing are based on different trends. The Spanish and American-inspired designs, the modern architectural designs, although majority of the national minorities still prefer native Filipino designs. By looking at every community, churches and mosques, public spaces and public buildings, even the burial practices and mausoleums or cemeteries, we can see how Filipinos are inspired by those who conquered it, and the transition from old-fashioned to the new evolving age of Philippine architecture. Before the Philippines were colonized, our country's culinary dishes were flourishing, wherein early Filipinos enjoyed simply boiled, steamed, or even roasted meat dishes. Most of our cuisine was inspired by Chinese, though when Spanish replacement had begun to colonize our country, it introduced a vast Spanish recipes, and some of these are still part of our today's cuisine. We have our own cooking styles and regional variants. Filipino foods means celebrations and signifies hospitality, reflecting Filipino culture. Filipino cuisine is continuously growing and evolving, embracing foreign cuisine and innovating our own native cuisine.
Routine and fashion. The Filipino accepted Western fashion into their everyday lives. Fashion greatly influenced the traditional formal women dress of the Philippines called terno. One of the famous dresses in the Philippines is the Maria Clara dress, which is the well-dressed Filipino attire. Men, from flowing clothes to loose-fitting trousers. Filipino men wear baro a short blouse below the knee, and salakot, a clothes. Baro symbolized nationalism. Baro became Barong Tagalog, the physical embodiment of things of being Filipino and nation's pride. Marriage, family, and gender. Family a more central role in the lives of its members and all in nations and in more greater aspect. The Filipino bilateral family means that one's relative are includes individuals from fathers and mothers family. Extended family includes the nuclear family and the elders and others relatives to live closer to each other, to have a more closest relationship and connection. In Filipino culture, in marriage, sponsors are become part of family because sponsors become godparents of the groom and bride, and those sponsors, godparents become compadre. And the same in the children in baptism. The sponsor become godparents, parents, and godparents become compadre. Gender socializations and dating. Socializations through boys are extra-familial with other boys and the groups of boys known barkada. In America, it's called gang. The relationship or barkadas become strong and long-lasting. Girls consciously fashion themselves into stereotypic housewife roles. Their freedom or movements with regards to boys become shortly limited. Courtship and marriage. Filipino enter into dating and courtship. It's really become passionate person and have a romantic life and marriage.
Festival are most popular event in the Philippines. These festive occasions are enjoyed by many Filipino and have a social dimension of the country's religious life. Philippine theater is a event that show the culture of our country. Local movie industry remain popular and reflects cultural value and social concern. Being a Filipino and having like this local film and festive make me realize how important the culture that we have. Music and dance in the Philippines is a wide variety tradition of the Philippines. There is so many local music and dance that perform on the Philippine theater. Filipinos has a indigenous dance that influenced by Spanish and American colonization. An example of that is Kundiman. Kundiman is a love song that can be tender and sweet.
While instrumental musicians and conductors might be contented to perform works by European and American composers, the nation's creators of music must pen new works, and their source of inspiration will be the musical tradition of the nation as they write musical descriptions of the country's people, history, and natural environment.
It is enjoyable to learn about our own music and dances.
Chapter 9: Social Customs and Lifestyle. While Chapter 6 focused on courtship, marriage, and the replication of the Filipino family, the discussion in this chapter looks at the creation of the individual as he or she is made into a representative of Philippine culture and how he or she is expected to act as a Filipino. Since the Filipino is raised to consider himself and herself as being at the center of a closely related kin group, the feelings and needs of an individual members must be respected so that everyone will participate in the activities of the whole. At the same time, a sophisticated and educated generation of Filipino priests who formerly served as assistants to the friars rose in the church and began to threaten the friars' control of the country's religious life.